Well, Kash, it just looks like there's no stopping those pesky demons because this is the third. I think it's the third time I've reviewed Diablo 3 in some shape or form.
I won't be
Uh,
surprised if it's
and
the last one either.
yeah, like hopefully it's the last one. Not because I don't like playing this game, but because it's getting a bit, maybe a bit repetitive going over the same points again. But shit, I mean, I say it's the third time I've reviewed it. It's the fourth time I've played it. Because I bought the original PC release, which so did you, if I remember rightly. We played it
Yeah,
a little bit
I think
together.
we played a little bit together on PC. I kind of fell out of love with it when everyone fell out of love with it. This was long before the Real Money Auction House got discontinued. And I didn't pick up the expansion for the sole reason that I knew I was going to get next gen console. And I heard you kind of praise Diablo on the console, whereas I'd almost dismissed it as kind of a cash cow from Blizzard's part.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like maybe this time last year, I think it came out in September on Xbox 360 and PS3, the kind of base Diablo. And me and Matthew reviewed it. He'd never played Diablo 3 at all. I was coming to consoles, and by for all intents and purposes, it was the better version. The control scheme worked fucking amazingly on the controller. The fact that there was no auction house and drops were altered to accommodate that was great.
Hmm.
Um, it just felt like a much more complete version, and it was so much fun. And the fact that it introduced couch co-op between one, but you could go from one player to four players on a single console, and it was just a load of fucking fun. That was, it was just absolutely
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. I never really kind of thought of Diablo's been a couch game. If you think about it, though, I guess go back to the original Diablo 1 and 2, you could play that on a LAN, and that was almost kind of
It,
the PC's version to a couch. You couldn't really huddle around one screen, but everyone had their own screen and their own console.
yeah, and I almost think about it. It's almost like a gauntlet type game. Remember fucking Gauntlet?
Yes. Many pounds were lost playing that.
It kind of reminds me of that when you do couch co-op on this. Everyone's got their own class and you're going through waves and waves of enemies.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of is reminiscent of to me. But yeah, the console version was fucking great. And I always enjoyed the Diablo because its core gameplay was always really, really slick. It was the surrounding metagame that left a lot to be desired. And the console took a lot of steps to fix that, to address that. Um, and then in March, just gone by, March 2014, the PC
Yeah.
version finally got an injection of life in Reaper of Souls, the first expansion pack to Diablo 3. And it pretty much just sharpened Diablo to a fucking razor's edge. It polished it to a mirror sheen. It was amazing, Reaper of Souls. It was so good. I was off week the I was off sorry I was off work the week it came out, and I stayed up to see it unlock, and I was like, I'll play it a few hours. So I think it unlocked like 11:30 UK time, and I was up at like 8 a.m. still playing it.
Jeez Louise. Yeah, I heard from you that it was really good, and a lot of the critics and reviewers kind of praised it as well. I don't think anybody bought it for the story. I mean, this whole story of Diablo is nothing spectacular. Even I mean,
It's
it's just decent. I
it's
heard
it
from it.
it gives you an excuse to fight monsters. That's pretty much
Yeah.
what you can say about it. But now what we're here today to review is Diablo 3 Ultimate Evil Edition, which brings the kind of improved console version to next gen consoles, but also adds in the Reaper of Souls expansion pack and all the improvements that brought with it. And as a result, you have what is, quite frankly, in my opinion, the best version of the game. Some people might disagree, but I think it's the overall the best version of a pretty fucking amazing game.
I think so far, just taking the base game Diablo 3 on its own, it was a lot more fun leveling up. I rolled a brand new class I hadn't tried on the main version. On the main version, on the PC version, I should say, sorry, I had the monk level 60, loved him to bits. Never got the expansion, as I say, but just playing through the initial kind of first bit through the story mode, it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And I couldn't wait to kind of try adventure mode. And when I tried adventure mode, it was just brilliant. And the console and the mapping and the buttons, it just plays really well.
it's fucking impressive how what Blizzard have managed to do with this. It's really really good. So for those not in the know, Diablo is essentially a top-down action RPG where you take the role of one of six classes. You can be a male or female of each of these classes, and they're all voiced with their own personality and voice actors and kind of slightly different dialogue, although they all follow a similar template. And you basically go in and you follow a kind of paper-thin story about the demons of hell and the angels of heaven fighting over the mortal world of Sanctuary. And you basically slaughter thousands upon thousands upon thousands of monsters that come in various shapes and sizes. And as you fight, you get people more powerful, develop better abilities, you acquire more powerful gear, and you basically try to hone your character into becoming the most efficient monster slayer possible.
Yep.
I think that's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it's just really good stuff. It's just strangely addictive. Just hordes, waves after monster, and demons, and I mean the mobs you fight are generally the same. They don't really change, but it's just something satisfying about jumping into kind of a flurry of mobs head on and just coming out victorious and getting yourself tested against kind of the elite mobs and the more kind of boss mobs even.
Yeah, there's a lot here. I mean, the core gameplay of Diablo is fucking fantastic. It makes you feel so powerful. Like everything you do feels spectacular. You can't not do something amazing in this game. Like the barbarian class, who is basically about brute force and raw elemental damage that he can kind of spray. He can like kind of imbue weapons with fire and lightning as he gets higher up, and he's basically just about raw explosive power. His basic attack is called Bash, and it just like crushes enemies like beneath his blows. You just feel like a mountain of a man just crushing and cutting things in half, and it's just like from the off, it's like fuck, this is amazing, and that's just like the first ability you get.
It is. It's strangely addictive. I mean, the mobs you fight initially are just zombies, kind of lifeless, do very little damage, move very slowly. It's a good way to kind of bring it into the game's mechanics. But yeah, that's a really good kind of first ability to get.
Yeah, and it kind of translates across all the classes, because I say there's 6 classes, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. But not only do your abilities feel really powerful, you feel like a big powerhouse taking on these monsters. You feel like you should be able to take on these demons and hellspawn and everything, despite just being a man, because you're a fucking badass. You can do anything you want, really. But the way the enemies fight and die is so satisfying. They don't just kind of fall over in a canned animation. You'll either smash their bodies away in like a spectacular ragdoll. You'll decapitate them. You'll blow them to bloody chunks. Like if you're playing with the wizard class, if you electrocute them, you'll literally melt the flesh from their bones and leave a drooping skeleton in place. And there's just hundreds and hundreds of different little variations on how enemies die, and it's just fucking amazing. There's like a constant variation, and you kind of the amount of like holy fuck moments that you get when you're fighting.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just like you'll knock an enemy, and it almost looks like he's going to knock another enemy, but they'll just kind of go for a sixer, or they'll fly off the screen, or they'll just get completely smashed. Like you'll crit at the same point. You kind of use your ultimate attack or your special attack, and you'll just see this kind of red gory mess. You just like whoa. It's timeless. It doesn't get boring at all. I mean, I was playing a quick game before I came online actually to do this podcast. And I've got one of the legendary weapons from one of the bosses, and it involves kind of using it as a hook from the butcher.
Oh yeah, I've had that a few times.
And yeah, it's satisfying just to kind of jump with the barbarian, hook someone at the same time, and then just smash them to pieces. It's incredible.
It's awesome, man. And what's great is like every class feels great. Like the core gameplay is good, but I mean, come back to the classes. The 6 classes, and not one of them feels kind of shitty or underhanded or underdeveloped. They all feel really, really well thought about. And the only reason I think that anyone would find a reason to complain about any of the classes on the whole is that if maybe the flavor of that class didn't really gel with them. Like in one of the classes, you've got the barbarian, who's the big, strong melee character. You've got the Crusader, who's the heavily armored knight with a giant shield. You've got the Wizard, who just is a raw damage dealer, but a bit flimsy if they get attacked. You've got the Demon Hunter, who sets traps and utilizes animals to fight for him and uses a bow and arrow. You've got the Monk, who's lightning fast and uses Kung Fu style moves.
Yeah, Monk is incredible. It plays almost like exactly how you kind of imagine. It looks like kind of a Taoist Buddhist monk. Spent years and years in the mountains training. I think that's pretty much his story.
I think that's his backstory, yeah, because they all have a little introduction at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, they do, and it's he sounds kind of Russian, which I guess is a little strange. And then as you play him, it's just using all these martial art moves and kind of mirror images to thwart foes and using power of the light and his holy power and everything. It's a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, the monkey is cool. What else have you got? You've got I mentioned Demon Hunter,
Witch Doctor, Crusader.
Witch Doctor. Yeah, the Witch Doctor, who's pretty much like a voodoo priest who summons otherworldly monsters to fight for him. Um, I must admit, I don't know a lot about the Witch Doctor. He's the class I played
It's,
the least of.
I've played quite a bit. Well, I got 1 to about 55 on the PC version. It kind of plays for those who missed the Necromancer from Diablo 2, I believe. In that
Yeah,
it's got a lot of summoning abilities. Probably not as ranged as a Necromancer was, but for example, you can raise kind of an army of undead dogs, or you can raise like a really giant kind of gargantuan zombie guy who can kind of deal a lot more damage and stuff. And then all of his abilities are to do with called the Unknown Lands or the Link to the Unknown Lands.
that's right. Yeah.
And he's got kind of a mana pool, which is his kind of resource, and uses magic such as like flying bats or fiery bats, and summons frogs that explode and giant spiders that infect and kind of curse and poison enemies and things like that. It's a lot about kind of crowd control. I think it's not really much about dealing damage to a single enemy. It's about kind of, for example, let's say you summon all your zombies and they all kind of run off and deal with all the other monsters and demons, and then you kind of bring out your abilities that tend to do AoE damage. So I think
Yeah.
it's like the wizard, I guess, a lot of
He's,
AoE damage.
I always get the impression he's a bit more of an indirect class. He's a bit of a puppet master. He controls minions that do his fighting for him almost.
Yep.
And I said this about the original console release last year. Because he's the most indirect fighter, he suffers the most from coming across to the controller rather than the mouse and keyboard.
Hmm.
I don't think it's a bad thing, but whereas I think the controller enhances a lot of the other classes, especially the melee based ones. I think it doesn't feel quite as it doesn't feel like he was originally thought up with a control pad in mind. It feels like he was developed for the mouse and keyboard almost. Maybe that's wrong. I haven't played with him a lot, but when I have played as him, he does feel a little bit disjointed. Not that it's bad or it's necessarily a big criticism, but
Yeah.
it's still a lot of fun. I just don't. I think out of all the classes, the Witch Doctor plays the most not bad but awkward. But
Hmm.
it is a minor awkwardness.
I
It's not
think it's
something
used
that
to
would
their own because it's
impact.
just such a varied playstyle. People who just don't want to kind of, for example, me and you like to just run in
Yeah.
headless chickens, just fucking blow the shit out of everything. Metaphorically speaking, of course. I think if people want to stand back and just kind of um, do a lot more damage in the background, maybe play more of a support role than a direct damage role.
Well, maybe you're right because I tell you what, I've been mainly playing as Crusader, which is the new class, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I love having a Witch Doctor with me because they're like the ultimate backup. They just bring an army with them, and it's just great to have one around.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of. I mean, I remember playing quite a few games online with kind of different people. I remember having a witch doctor was just a lot of fun, just because the sheer number of people, mobs that they would control,
Yeah, it's
and it would
crazy.
just mean that monsters would attack you, even if it was slightly less, but they would be distracted. You could focus on, the biggest, the baddest one out there.
Yeah, no, you're right. I come back to Crusader because if anyone hadn't played the original console release or hadn't played the original PC game since Reaper of Souls came out, Crusader is the big new class. It came out with the expansion pack. It's kind of finally filled that void of the role of the shiny, well, the knight in heavy armor that has been absent from Diablo. I think they tried to maybe split that role between the barbarian and the monk originally, but at the same time, there's still been a void that wasn't quite filled by it. But now we have the Crusader, who are essentially heavily armored knights that utilize brute force and holy powers and holy fire to just destroy their enemies. And fuck me, man, they're so much fun. The Crusader is my favorite class. I absolutely love playing as the Crusader. It's just so much fun. It's probably most comparable to the Barbarian because you're a kind of heavy up close melee class. But whereas the Barbarian seems to have like a wind up, so when I play the Barbarian, it's kind of like mediocre damage, mediocre damage, mediocre damage, and then you unleash a flurry of like an explosion that tears through everything.
It's
And
it's
then
it's, it's like your kind of warrior class in World of Warcraft, sort of building up your kind of fury or your rage.
yes,
And then once you get to that level, you can start kind of dealing damage. now, as the higher levels that you go, kind of Fury is much easier to generate than it is at the lower levels.
It is, yes.
Um, but yeah, I think Crusader reminds me a lot of the actual follower Crusader in the main game that you get, in that you
Yeah,
kind of run in and there isn't really much time for him to kind of act. He could
the
just get straight in.
Crusader is, whereas the Warrior is kind of like something that you have to wind up and then let go. The Crusader is a lot more kind of regimented and disciplined. Like, you'll do like I tended to do use shield bash where you charge forward and just smash an enemy with your shield full force. I would use that to close the gap into a group, and then I just start regimentally just chopping away at enemies in the group in a really kind of rhythmic fashion. And it has a great rhythm to it, and you can create some great kind of rotations on your abilities with the Crusader. And oh man, I love it so much. There's so many cool abilities. I just love the fact that their whole combat style revolves around hitting people in the face with the shield. It's just so much fun. Um, you got the shield bash ability, which just feels really cool. You've got a shield throw ability, so you can pretend you're Captain America. You've got a fucking ability that lets you mount a horse, like a spectral horse, and ride over people. And there's one of the runes on it that will set the horse on fire, which then sets enemies on fire as you ride over them. There's even another
Ghost
rune on
Rider.
it. It kind of is. But there's even another rune which basically I think it's called Drawn and Quartered, and basically as you mount your horse, you fire chains into all the enemies around you and you drag them behind you as you ride.
Oh my god.
It's
That reminds me of like Red Dead Redemption.
it kind of is. It's not really very practical, but it's a lot of fucking fun. Yeah, man, the Crusade is amazing. I love it so much, and I'd really recommend you give it a go because I know you haven't played it too much yet. But my
Yeah, I definitely would try Crusader. I thought I'd level up a Barbarian, which I've done, and that's pretty much done. I think next class is definitely Crusader, and then I've got Demon Hunting to do, and then I'm pretty much done. It's a shame that I think going back to the PC version, I know on the PS3 you can, even the Xbox, you can upgrade in the sense that you can transfer your characters. I don't think there's a way to do that from the PC version as far as
No,
I'm
the PC version, as far as Blizzard are concerned, is a separate version. They've got separate visions for both of them. And yeah, I mean, if you had a character on an older console, there was something you could do online to basically bring them over to the next gen. Um, I never did because I think the only character I really had anything on was a level 60 barbarian. So I just kind of started again with this to get the most out of it. Maybe kind of regretting that now because I'm leveling up a barbarian at the moment.
Yeah,
I could have already had one, but
it's a shame, I think. Because I thought from my monk it would have been brilliant to kind of bring it over and carry on and even get him to level 70 because I never really did.
oh well. Sorry, if you mean bring them over for the PC version, shit, I would have had I would have had a level 70 Crusader, a level 65 Barbarian, and then all the other classes around level 30, 40. So I'm to be honest, I don't know even if I had the option to bring it over from the PC version, I don't know if I would have because I kind of would have done it and all right, the game's already finished.
I suppose.
It's not so bad like for you because you haven't played. I think the last time we really played it together on the PC version was when Paragon levels came out on the PC version,
Yeah.
which is a long time ago now. So if that was the case, then that ain't too bad. But yeah, because I've been hammering Reaper of Souls when it came out. I had a lot of like pretty good, well not good characters, but a few well developed characters.
Mm.
So I mean, moving on from the character classes, which like we say are really good, they all play fantastically. It's more about what flavor of character you want rather than which one's better than which.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is a great thing Blizzard have managed to pull off. Now I know there's a lot of kind of high end players on the PC community that'll say, "Oh well, this class is better than that." You know, you can't farm high levels with this class. And I think unless you're playing on the bleeding edge and you really give a shit about min maxing to the extreme, every class is enjoyable in its own way. And I don't think you'll have that kind of hardcore community on the console versions. I think this is very much more a laid back version of the game than the PC counterpart.
Yeah. There will be some diehard fans that kind of do this solely just for kind of the grind and the loot and get the enjoyment of that. But the great thing about this game is you can just pick it up for 10 minutes, an hour and a half. I just dive right into it. Even at the end game when you've done the story mode, the adventure mode, picks up, you got your rifts, you got the extra mobs and the bounties to do, which I'm sure we'll be coming on to shortly.
Yes, I've got a comprehensive list of notes. I didn't want to miss anything out. So I mean, really, the first thing you do is once you pick your class, you go into the game. you got to go through the story mode, which we've said the story itself is kind of mediocre. It's fairly forgettable. The characters are fairly bland. But it gives you a good excuse to basically go around to these different locations and then fight a variety of different monsters and demons and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And some of the areas are while the stories are mediocre, the actual areas are pretty damn interesting. And I think we said the storyline's not great, but I think it improves a shit ton when you get into Act 5, which is the expansion pack, the Reaper of Souls Act. I think it opens up a little bit more, and the enemies aren't quite a Saturday morning cartoon anymore.
That's a kind of very PC way of putting it, I think.
Yeah, because one of the main complaints that a lot of people had in the base game of Diablo 3, so Acts 1 to 4 in this, is that these kind of nefarious villains will just spout exposition, and basically they'll just talk bollocks at you from a distance until you get up close and fight them. And it was just bad writing and bad characterization, and it's not good. And that goes for that goes for all the demons. You've got the first major villain you come across is Lord Belial, who's meant to be the master of lies in hell. He's basically the prince of lies or some shit. And his grand lie, is so easy to see through. You'd have to be a fucking moron not to twig on straight away. And then you've got the second big boss is Azmodan, who's the master strategist of hell. He's the Lord of Sin and the master strategist and leader of the armies of hell. And his strategy seems to be telling you exactly what he's going to do before he does it, so you can stop him. He literally outlines his plans to you before they're in action.
Yeah.
And you think, this is really the master strategist? The armies of heaven couldn't beat this guy in a millennia?
He's like, now you have raised your defenses. It matters little because I have entered your castle. And then you enter his castle, he goes, it doesn't matter because my siege weapons will destroy your castle. Okay, we'll destroy your siege weapons.
I know, it's fucking ridiculous, man. It's like a bastard. He's like a cartoon villain. And then I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say Diablo was in this game.
Whoa! We need people a bit more notice than that, mate.
I mean, he was on the front box of the original game, but he's meant to be he's the Lord of Terror. He's the cleverest of all the demon lords. He's basically so maniacal that he outclasses all the rest of the demon lords, and he's just shit when you finally meet him. He's just He's worse than Azmodan. It's you've destroyed my portals. Never mind, because I'm doing this now, and you'll never beat me. And his voice acting's bad as well. It's really bad.
He kind of can understand it from Diablo's point of perspective because he's had so long to kind of put this master plan into effect, and it's been done. And in his head, there's no way this master plan can fail, and that's why he's just been a cocky bastard. I think Azmodan was just trying to put fear into you, but it just didn't work at all.
No, I just it just thing is though the lines they deliver were pretty ropey at best. The characterization, I never felt that these guys were very scary.
No.
To me, Azmodan should have been holy shit, this is the leader of the armies of hell. Am I going to beat him? I think the first time I played through this game, I was with a group of experienced people, and I think we nuked him down in about 20 seconds. He didn't even get to do his whole monologue that he does during the fight. And I was thinking, oh, really? That was him?
Monologues. I don't think I've met a boss who monologues more than Diablo did. I mean, Azmodan and Belial kind of say shit to you, but then they just kind of get on with it. And Diablo's all you have ever known, all you have ever known will be defeated. Yeah, there were times where he'd kind of stop mid-sentence because you've taken him to past half his health.
Yeah, it's just fucking ridiculous, man. And
I have to admit, my favorite boss fight is Zoltan Cool, and I just
Zoltan Cool. He's talk about cartoon villains.
I fucking love him though, considering technically he is the good guy, and just you were kind of.
I wouldn't describe him as a good guy. He's not a bad. Well, he is. He's
the anti-hero. In the sense that he knew what was going on from the start.
And he has a solution to the problem, but he will use the solution for bad means. That's the. But the thing is, he literally is a mustache twirling, cackling villain. That is literally an apt description of him physically and through his personality as well. He literally hovers around with a giant fucking evil Emperor Ming, the merciless fucking beard and mustache, cackling at you. and saying kind of slightly cryptic things, then doing a maniacal laugh. He's such a fucking ridiculous character. But I must admit, he does spice up the second act a hell of a lot.
I think he's yeah, I really like his voice acting as well. I mean, all of the bad characters, I'd say, have really kind of deep bass embedded into the like voice line and stuff. But I think Zoltan Cool, it works really well. I think, and because it's
I
like
do like him.
he's like a fallen kind of Horadrim, which is like this ancient order.
They kind of work with the angels to keep the demons at bay, but they're a human kind of order. But yeah, I do, you know, Zoltan Cool is fun. I don't think he's necessarily a good character, but he's a very fun character.
Yeah. I think that's probably a better way of putting it.
And after, I mean, this game's built on like repetition, so you will see him a lot of times, and after a while, he just becomes funnier the more you play it. Like, it's just like he's so blatantly signposting like his villainy. But it's just fucking hysterical.
It is very cartoon villainy, though. I think. One of my favorite cartoon villains of the game, though.
Yeah, he's probably the best villain in the game, really. Well, in the base game, because things change up quite a bit. I think when you get to Act 5, I presume you've done Act 5 now because you've got Adventure.
Yep.
So Act 5 obviously was the expansion back, Reaper of Souls, and it doesn't focus on demons so much as it focuses on a fallen angel who's turned to become the Angel of Death. Malthael, the Angel of Death, turns up and causes some shit, and he brings his Reaper army who are stealing souls to create more enemies and fuel his master plan and all the rest of it. But I thought he was far more menacing than any of the demons that you're fighting in the game, because he doesn't fucking jabber at you constantly. Like, you barely see him in the game. You kind of hear about what he's up to, and you fight his lieutenants who also, again, don't jabber endlessly. They kind of tell you what they need to, and then they just fight you. And he pops up occasionally in like kind of as a shade, just to know that just to let you know that he's watching you, and he's keeping an eye on you. And even when you go in to fight him at the end, he just really say a lot. He just kind of like, we both know the score. Let's just have a fucking scrap.
Yeah, he's basically saying after I kill you, that's it, we win. And like he just wants to get on with it. He don't want to kind of monologue. I mean, it's not as if he'd been planning it. He kind of capitalized on the opportunity, which was all the 7 greater evils encapsulated into one black soulstone. That's it.
Yeah.
And then he could use that to finally win the eternal war between good and evil and light and dark.
Yeah, and what was quite interesting, he's far more interesting than Diablo or Asmodan or Belial, because you can kind of see his point. I mean, he is evil. There's no, like, he's doing bad shit.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, he's been fighting an endless war for millennia, to the point where he literally decided to, like, he was the original leader of the aliens, the fucking angels. That's the next expansion pack. He was the original leader of the angels, and he was so kind of disillusioned by the ongoing conflict that he left them to kind of go and find a solution, and this is the solution he's found. So you can kind of see his point on the one end, but on the other, he's trying to cause genocide to the human race. So
he's essentially trying to just nuke the human race just to get rid of them. Of them. Well, not them so much, but to get rid of kind of the demons.
Well, yeah, because in this...
So anything that has any ounce or aspect of evil in them has to be eradicated. And
and in the law of Diablo, humans are a product of demons and angels interbreeding. So basically every human's half demon, and he wants to eradicate that half, but unfortunately that doesn't let the remaining half survive. So I think the plot is far more interesting in Reaper of Souls, the Act 5, and not just the main plot, but the subplots. There's a lot of kind of little subplots that are randomly peppered out throughout the act. I mean, did you pick up on the plot where there's a group of rebels trying to overthrow the king while the Reapers are attacking them, because I think it's a good opportunity?
Talk about fucking capitalists.
I know, they're really fucking...
I saw that, I was like, really, of all the fucking times you choose to do this shit? But it's quite strange that in Act 5, like the harder act, there are humans who are quite clearly harder than some of the, like, harder kind of, well, allegedly harder demons, and you just think, really? Where were you when we needed you?
I know, where were you? Fucking Tristram?
There's all these little subplots and sublaws going on. But yeah, I did pick up on that. Probably not in great detail, but I knew that they were trying to get up to some shady shit.
did you see the conclusion? Because there's like 3 or 4 kind of mini dungeons that move the story along.
No, I didn't.
It does come to a conclusion as well.
Go on.
Um,
Well,
I
I'll
don't want
believe.
to. I don't want to.
Let me find it. I'll do it on my Crusader.
Yeah. It's cool, but that's just one of the kind of excuse me, one of the submissions. And I found in Act 5, there's always been kind of randomized sub dungeons and sub areas in Diablo, but Act 5 really kind of threw the doors open and kind of doubled or tripled the amount there were. I felt, especially when you're in Westmarch, the city that the act starts in. There's so many like basements and houses you can go into.
Yeah, there's loads. I mean, they tend to not do very much either. Like when you go through the main game, Acts 1, 2, 4, I believe, you get the occasional kind of side dungeon. You go through it, there's stuff to do, and you come out. And in this one, it's almost like a diversion or distraction, really.
I just felt it was just kind of like just to expand on like every house you go into has got like a mini event in it or like a mini sub story. Like there's one where you've got a load of people like refugees hiding in the cellar and a load of soldiers getting overwhelmed by the Reapers, and you kind of come in and save them, and they say, "Oh, thanks for saving us. There's a couple of chests in the back you can help yourself to," and just shit like that. It was just nice little distractions, and because they're randomized, it's not always you don't always get the same ones open to each pass through, which I just thought was quite nice. But I just think in general, Act 5 was a significant step up in a lot of ways. The story's better. I fucking love the atmosphere and the art style of the Gothic West March and the bleak. What was it? The battlegrounds of eternity, the war zone where heaven and hell fought over for a millennia. There's some fucking amazing backdrops in Act 5 that look really cool.
Yeah.
And one thing that I really think is not really recognized enough is that the boss fights in Act 5 are so much better.
Yeah, they tend to be. I mean, I think you put this bit. Tend to be like kind of WoW raid, but better in the sense that they've got patterns and play styles, and you have to kind of coordinate yourself. It's not just run in and just beat the shit out of it until it falls down.
Well, right, yeah.
I think Adrian and Malthael kind of do this more in the sense that they've got kind of waves and patterns, and they do certain attacks, and it's about positioning yourself, or you'll just get kind of decimated. And it does play up a little bit more now. Diablo fight kind of had that in some aspects, but generally you could have just stood either in front of him or behind him and got away with it scot-free, but I couldn't have done that in some of these fights.
No, not at all. I mean, as I said before, when I fought Asmodan in this, we literally nuked him down in like 20 seconds, and he didn't get off a single ability, pretty much. You can't do that to any of the bosses in Act 5. You've got, one of the bosses is, he's like an a fallen angel lieutenant with a huge fucking flamethrower.
Oh my God,
and like, you're in this burning church fighting them, and like these kind of burning rafters keep falling down and creating barriers where that limit your movement options. And as you say, the Malthael fight there, the last boss, he that whole fight was really reminiscent of like the whole setting was reminiscent of the Wrath of the Lich King fight. It, like on top of this like icy platform and stuff, and he's got some really nasty abilities that you've got to avoid. And I just felt the boss fights were a lot more mechanical and a lot more enjoyable because of that you can't just bully your way through with gear. As you up the difficulty, as you become more powerful, you've still got to play to the mechanics to a large degree.
Definitely.
And having played on hardcore through the game, some of the later boss fights are pretty nerve-wracking. Because if you die, you that's it. You got to start the game again in hardcore. So fighting Malthael, I was like psyching myself. I felt like a boxer going into a fight, going into the Malthael battle. Because I was like, right then, you get one chance at this. You can't fuck up. And it was pretty intense occasionally. Like I had a few really close calls because of some of his abilities. But it was fun, They're much more fun, the boss battles. But so Act 5 is a really good addition to the game. And I mean, I don't know if this is true, but it feels a lot longer than the other acts as well. It feels like the length of almost 2 acts.
It was a while. I think it probably wasn't the length of 2 acts. I'd say it's probably as big as Act 2. I think Act 2 was quite big.
Yeah, Act 2 is pretty long. It's a long... I think it's probably the longest act in the game.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. Its level design's more interesting. There's a lot more mechanics about it. Act 5's great. I love Act 5. It's fantastic. One thing else that's changed since this new version is the difficulty system's changed.
Yep.
And it's changed for the better. Whereas previously, the way Diablo used to work when it first came out is that you start the game at level 1 and you play on normal. By the time you completed Acts 1 to 4, you then have to move up to Nightmare, and by the time you finish the game on normal, you'd be level 30. So Nightmare was pretty much catered for level 30 and above. By the time you finish the game on Nightmare, you'd be like level 50, which then you would move on to Hell difficulty, and then you basically Hell would, when you complete the game on Hell, sorry, you would level from 50 to 60, and then you'd move on to Inferno, and then you would just grind Inferno at the level cap for gear. Now it's a lot more flexible, it's a lot more in depth, and kind of there's a lot more longevity in it, because the way it works now is you straight away off the belt you have difficulty isn't tied to level anymore. It scales with your level essentially. But now you have normal, hard, expert, master. I'm trying to think now. Then torment.
Yep, and then you got torments go up to, I think it's 6.
Yeah, torment 1 to 6. So basically, when you're playing through the game and leveling up, you'll generally play on normal if you just want to breeze through the game. No real challenge at all, but you'll level up a bit, kind of at the regular rate. You play on hard if you want a kind of a funner, a bit more challenging, a bit more fun pace on the game. And you'll also get a bonus to the amount of gold that gets dropped from the amount of experience you accrue. When you get to the higher levels, you probably move up to expert. And by the time you're level 70, you're probably going to be playing on master until you get a few gear. And then when you're level 70 and you're well geared, you move on to master, and then you work on moving up the way through to master. That's generally how it works now.
Yep. I think it's a lot more. I prefer it, to be honest with you.
I prefer it so much.
It's quite clear as to what level each does. Like normal, you'll get 75% of regular XP. The harder modes, you'll go up to like 150, then 175, 200, etc., etc. It then says kind of you've got a better chance of getting loot. You've got more kind of rewards for doing so. You level up quicker, which is great if you want to kind of boost your character to level 7. You don't want to kind of do the grind again.
That's
the
thing. I mean, you say that there's different rewards for playing at higher difficulties, and the fact that the torment difficulties are essentially earmarked. You can only play on the torment difficulties when you're level 70. And they're basically people who are reasonably well geared, and you've got to get better and better geared as you go through the torments. But the bonuses they add pretty much create like a unique self-contained endgame for high-level characters in this version. Well, that simply wasn't there in the original.
Yep.
And it's great. It feels a lot more. There's a lot more logical progression to the torment difficulties over the previous Inferno and everything like that. It just feels a lot better.
Yeah, I think it's better. And then I think it's a bigger challenge. I mean, the Inferno didn't feel all that kind of. I mean, it did in some places, but I think when you get to like torment level 4 and 5, you think, okay, this is fucking not messing about anymore.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Inferno when the game first came out, Inferno was almost impossible to play. It was too hard. And then they nerfed it down, and it wasn't. It just kind of. The thing is, it was a static difficulty level.
Yeah.
So you were like banging your head against it until one day you just got magic drops, or back in the day you bought them from the auction house, and then all of a sudden it was too easy. There was no kind of progression. It just kind of one day it was hard, the next day it wasn't. Whereas here you've got a nice steady progression, which kind of folds into Diablo as a whole. Because one of the things I love about this game is it's got this perfect learning curve. So when you start level 1, you've got one ability. It's usually a fairly basic ability. You kill a few enemies, you get to the first guy and talk to him. You level up, you level 2. You now have got 2 abilities. And it constantly teases you with new abilities and new items. And it's like it's digital crack, this, because it just makes you want to continue playing. It just as you think, all right, I'm going to go to bed. It's 4 a.m. I need to go to bed. I can't keep playing.
And then like...
Yeah, you'll be like, I'll just get to the end of this quest. And then the quest will throw a new fucking sword in your lap. And it's like, hey, go and test that out. And you're like, I'll go and test this new sword out. Oh, mint, it's really, really powerful. Oh, shit, I've leveled up again. Oh, no, I've got a new ability. Wow, that ability's amazing. I got to continue playing to the next quest. And it's just like, it's this continuous conveyor belt that slowly ups the ante. And it's really fucking effective.
You could definitely lose your way with this. I mean, if you're unlucky enough, should I say, to have a Vita with remote play, then yeah, good luck to you. As soon as there's any kind of internet connection of any sort, the first thing you're going to be doing is getting onto it.
I'm glad you brought the Vita up because I usually like to mention whether PlayStation 4 games, because that's what we're playing on. I should mention that we're not playing on Xbox One. We're playing on PS4. I always like to mention whether a game's worth playing on the Vita because, let's face it, the Vita doesn't get a lot of love, and so remote play is one of its saving fucking graces. And I think Diablo 3 is possibly the best remote play game I've got or have ever played on my Vita. Like, it's just, it feels like it's a perfect match.
Yeah, it plays really well. I mean, I think I said to you I was getting a bit annoyed with the screen resolution. It was hard to maybe squint at, but I'm getting kind of used to it now. I don't need to kind of squint as much. I mean, really, all you need to know is kind of where the enemies are.
What abilities on what button,
Yeah,
where are the enemies?
Yep, that's it. That's pretty much all you do, and you just kind of get on with it. So it plays really well. I think Blizzard missed a trick when they didn't properly keybind some of the ability buttons.
Yeah, that was one thing we've discussed, not on a podcast, I don't think, but just in private, is that there are kind of built-in facilities within PlayStation, the PlayStation platforms, that you can automatically remap the buttons when you know what you're doing remote play. Destiny does this. What else was I playing? I think Assassin's Creed Black Flag did it a little
Yeah,
bit,
it does because I've played it on my Vita.
which was another good remote play game. Really good, in fact.
Yeah,
But Blizzard just seemed to have been lazy and said, just here you go. And thank fuck you can map any ability to any button because that fixes the problem. But it's a manual process where it should be an automatic one. Because the main issue is like your kind of power attack is usually tied to R2,
yeah.
whereas that translates to the back touchpad on the Vita. Whereas your super ability is normally on R1, which is the right bumper on the Vita. So you're better off on the Vita switching the two around. So you've got your power attack, which you use far more frequently on your right bumper
Mm.
on the Vita. It's like a 3 second fix, but it's annoying having to do it when you go on your Vita and then undo it when you go back on your PS4. Um, but once you're over that little blip, it's amazing playing Diablo on the Vita. I've actually managed to get my Vita remote player working over the internet. So when I go with my day job on business trips and whatnot, I'll subscribe to like Premier and Wi-Fi and sit in my room playing Diablo. Or sit in the bar playing Diablo. It's just fucking unreal. Like, I can't believe, like, what a day and age we live in.
Cheers, Lenny Henry. Got you to thank for that.
Exactly, man. And the fact that if it works on shitty Premiere in Wi-Fi, it's going to work elsewhere. It's worth trying to get up and running if you travel a lot or you're going to be away for an extended period of time.
Yeah, it plays really well. It kind of doesn't really suffer too much from lag. I mean, I've played in different settings. I played in my local network. I played from a wireless network from work, which isn't all that brilliant. And I've played kind of other places. Like I played when I was down in Leicester with the in-laws and stuff. And it plays well. Like there's even if there's kind of a slight lag, it's not as if you need the kind of
It's
major
not like razor sharp, is it? Like,
exactly.
It's the type of thing you can maybe lower the difficulty one level. Not that you generally need to, but to be honest, like I haven't really had a huge amount of lag. The worst thing that's happened to me is the picture breaks up, like it loses signal for a bit.
Yeah.
But I think it's great on remote play. And I'm going to put it to the test next week because I'm away all next week. So just need to make sure I put Diablo in the disc tray before I leave.
Yeah, that's the only thing about remote play that isn't brilliant.
I know it's almost encourages you to go digital.
Yeah,
but I'm not ready to do that. not on consoles.
Not yet. Not after all the fuss we made over the Xbox One. Just be going back there.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that you get ridiculous prices thrown in on digital games as well. Like what was Destiny, like 55 quid? I think no, in fact Diablo was 55 quid on the PSN store. And I was like, what? I got it for £44 on release at Asda. I was thinking,
yeah, it's. I think the PSN store could do a lot more if it properly prices stuff, but
yeah,
that's a story for another time.
It is. You're right. So we've talked about the story mode. We've talked a bit about the classes, the general gameplay. The next big thing, and this is probably the biggest feature of the expansion pack, and more importantly, this particular version of Diablo 3, is that we've now got adventure mode, which is essentially Blizzard's answer to freeform endgame in Diablo 3. One of the major complaints about the original game was that you essentially were playing through this fairly mundane story again and again and again, and you were kind of stuck in a very rigid flow. What adventure mode does is essentially it does away with the story. It opens the entire game world up, allows you to freely teleport around, and basically introduces missions in the form of bounties. And it gives you 5 bounties per act. And what it does is it basically says, go and kill this boss here. Go and kill this elite enemy over here.
Oh yeah, do this random event that pops up in the world.
Yeah, go and do one of the events. You complete them, you get what's called a Rift Keystone Fragment for completing them. If you do all 5 bounties in a single act, you go back and talk to Tyrael, the angel, and he will give you a Herodric Kash, which basically is a goodie bag that literally sprays loot all over the place when you open it. It's amazing. And the Rift Keystones that you get from completing these bounties can be used to open this obelisk into what's called a Nephilim Rift.
Yeah.
And these are essentially the closest thing we'll have to, like, I would suppose, they're not really like raid dungeons, but they're kind of the raid dungeon equivalent of Diablo, I suppose, in that these rifts are essentially completely randomized, multi-level dungeons. So you open a portal up and you go through and you don't know what you're going to get. You could get any level, any weather condition, any lighting effect, any combination of enemies, any number of enemies, any number of elites. You don't know what the fuck you're gonna get. And there's some crazy fucking variations out there, and it just creates this much more dynamic, dynamic flow to the game. You don't know what you're gonna get, and there's a lot of like, if you play through the story, each enemy is tied to a certain location and act in the game. You don't really generally see them move around a lot. Like in Tristram, you mentioned you fight zombies, and later on you fight cultists and the like. In Act 2, you fight the cultists again, but then you move on to kind of demons and kind of desert monsters and spirits from the Shadow Realm and stuff.
Yep.
And the third game, you're fighting Asmodan's army and the Mistresses of Sin or Mistresses of Lust and shit like that. But you know, it follows a fairly rigid pattern here. Anything can be anywhere, and you don't know what you're going to get. And the great thing about this is sometimes it can result in completely unexpectedly difficult fucking areas. Like you'll have 2 different types of enemy that are just absolutely awful to fight, and it'll throw them both at you in massive numbers all at once, and you've got to kind of really, really put yourself to the test to overcome it.
Yeah, it's a good mix-up. You can go back and have different combination of monsters come at you, and they've got kind of different attacks and strengths and abilities. And if you get kind of certain elite mobs that kind of play together, they can do some quite harm, and it just changes it, I think, for the better as well.
And the fact that it is random means that you can just chain these rifts off one after the other, and it never really gets boring. It's always different, it's always exciting, and some of the fucking, like, just the sheer volume of enemies in some of the higher torment levels is immense. I mean, one of the things this version of the game does, it tracks your kill streaks essentially.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it flags them up at the bottom.
Yeah.
What's the highest kill streak you managed to get?
I can't say. I can't remember off the top of my head. It wasn't all that good.
Well, me and Matthew played a lot of this when it first came out, and I think the highest one we got was like 698.
Jeez.
It went on for like 10 minutes solid of just hacking and slashing and blasting enemies. It was amazing.
Whoa, I don't know how you got that. I think the one I've got about 180, but that was with like a few people. We kind of split up and we just got really lucky. And I thought, 180 is not bad, but 600.
Oh, seriously, I've seen screenshots of other people above 1,000.
Oh, the fuck!
I just can't wait for the day I find something like that. I just love these endless fights because, like, generally Diablo has a bit of a rhythm. Yeah, like you have a fight and it's over reasonably quickly, and then you move on to the next part of enemies. But there's like a bit of rest in between. And when you go into these mammoth fights, there's like a point where you just think, "Fuck me, how long have I been just on the go here?" It's just insane. But it's not a criticism. They're the best parts of the game. You know, the game is at its best when you're just decimating wave upon wave of enemy, and you feel like a fucking badass. It's the best feeling about this game.
Spectacular.
Yeah, it's amazing. So the Rifts are the kind of new game, and they, as long as you're kind of still digging the core gameplay, Rifts basically give you the ultimate excuse to keep on playing. It's a really excellent system. And I don't know if you know this, or indeed if you've ever come across it, but there is, even in the PS4 version of the game, there's a special Last of Us themed Rift.
Yeah, I've not come across it yet. Have you?
No, I've never seen it, but I know you basically fight clickers and bloaters.
How do you get to it? I'm gonna have to read up.
It's
I
just
know
random.
it
It's
was
it's
on
just
there.
random. As far as I know, it's just completely random, but it's only in the PS4 version. But I thought that was a nice little touch. I've seen videos on YouTube about it and of it, but I've never ever come across it myself. I've heard tales of. I've never seen it again, but I've heard tales of a 10 leveled rift filled with cows,
What?
filled with pissed off cows, and it's basically the Cow King's army. I've never seen it, but I've heard it's amazing. So we've got a lot of work to do, man. We've got to see these things.
We'll have to, man. It's just like I say, I've yet to come across it though, which is annoying.
Thing is, because it is so random, you may never will. I've done a shit ton of rifts and I've never seen it.
Oh,
So
God.
you know, but we're reviewing this very late. This came out in August now. I mean, you've only had a few weeks because you only got your PS4 when Destiny came out. Um, But I'm glad we have waited because we got the new patch today, which brings the game up largely to in line with the PC version. So we've now got version 2.1, which introduced something called Greater Rifts. And I'll be honest, I don't know a huge amount about them, but they're essentially they introduce essentially a new layer of end game on top of the normal rifts that add greater challenges. And we've also got things like legendary gems that can be upgraded and stuff. So
It's like Rift plus one or Rift 2.0 even. It's
yeah, it's like they're like harder, more challenging, more kind of where it was the way rifts work and normally is that you go in and there's a bar of blood beside on the side of the screen, and as you kill enemies, you fill that up. And when you fill the bar up, you summon the Rift Lord, and it's basically a mini boss. And if you kill them, essentially you've completed the rift. That's the idea. Greater rifts are essentially the similar thing, I believe, but they're against the clock.
yeah, and kind of the higher you go and the more you kind of beat in terms of the clock, the better it is.
Yeah, so I've not done a huge amount of them, and I don't know a great deal of them, but it's still being supported. We're a bit behind the PC schedule, but Blizzard don't work quickly at the best of times, so we're not doing too badly. Um, and we're not getting seasons, which the PC is getting. But as somebody who dips in and out of this game rather than playing it solely, I'm not too bothered about that. That's why I said in
Seasons
this review.
is everyone's played kind of God, what's the word? I can't remember. There's a recent game that came out on Steam that's free to play, and it's kind of like a Diablo.
Path of Exile.
That's it, Path of Exile. Path of Exile has seasons, and they work kind of very similarly to that. But they're generally kind of for more the hardcore crowd, I would have thought.
They are, and again, like I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, saying that's why I think the PC crowd is the more hardcore audience for Diablo, because they get seasons and they love shit like that. Whereas this is far more pick up and play and enjoy it, while you're enjoying it, and then put it down, come back to it later. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's a shit ton in this game. I'd say it takes maybe between depends how many people you're playing with, how good they are, and what difficulty you're playing on. But I think you could get anywhere between about 7 and 10 hours to finish the story mode on this.
Yeah, and then
Um,
uncountless more to carry on
well,
afterwards.
that's the thing. I mean, however many hours you get out of this game, it really depends on how much you love it and
Mm.
how many of the classes you want to level up. Because I wouldn't be surprised if I put about 100 hours into the console version.
Yeah, I
That doesn't
thought
seem
about that on the
unreasonable.
PC version. I don't think I'm hit just there with the console version, but I'm getting that.
Yeah, and for a game I'm now on my fourth version of, that's pretty fucking impressive from Blizzard. I'm not bored at all. I fucking love this game. I really, really, really do like it, and this is the best version. In fact, one of the things we didn't mention is that there's an added feature in this that's only available in the console versions, and it's called the Nemesis system.
Oh yes, the Nemesis system. I was about to bring that in, but yeah, go ahead, do.
Oh no, go on, go on. You.
I was going to say when we come to like the final thoughts, I was going to come into the Nemesis system. But Nemesis system is essentially, let's say Ben, you're having a good game down at Premier Inn. Someone suddenly breaks out because that's the only way you're going to get killed between you and me, and the mob kills you. What'll happen then is that mob will teleport into my game, even more buffed up, even more pissed off, and it'll say that it killed you.
Yeah,
And my objective is then to kind of kill that mob. But then as
avenge
it
me.
Yeah, and avenge you. And if I avenge you, I get extra XP, extra loot, and it's just generally a more pleasant experience. And I'm not sure if you get notified that I have killed
Well,
it or not.
what happens is if I get killed by a monster, it levels up and then jumps into another random friend on my friends list game, tries to kill them, and if it kills them, it levels up again, then moves on to the next and gets more and more powerful until it finally decides, you know what, these are all pussies, I'm not doing it anymore, or somebody kills it.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know how many kind of loops it will go through, but I'm
I
assuming
don't
quite a
know.
few because in effect, it could probably go to friends of friends of friends.
Well, yeah, essentially, it's like a virus, I suppose, that spreads through people's friends lists. One thing I have noticed is after it's jumped a few times,
Mm.
it starts actually bringing like the souls of fallen players with it and uses them in minions,
Yeah, yeah.
which is always fun.
I've only had Nemesis once, but it had like the undead version of my friend who
Yeah,
was a pretty
and
shit player anyway, to be honest with you.
so it wasn't too much of a
And so
challenge.
it just wasn't like I was kind of worried or anything.
But it's a really cool system, and as you say, like if you manage to avenge me, not only do you get bonuses and loot and all the rest of it, but it actually drops a legendary gift for me that you can send to me.
Yeah,
So basically, it's a gift. You'll click it and it'll send it through the post to me, and then when I check it in the in-game post, I'll have a legendary item. And that's a really cool system, you know. It's a bit more social, like in a passive way. It's just a nice little touch. It ain't game changing, but it's a nice little touch. And the you can always tell when the nemesis are coming through because there's this like fanfare, this strange noise starts playing, and it
yep.
gets really really brooding and moody all of a sudden, and then you
And
think,
then
oh shit, here
and
it
then a
comes.
portal just fucking opens out of nowhere, and this thing it just pretty much tears a portal open into your game.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
crazy.
cool effect, man. It's really good. It's just a lot of fun, and it adds another layer to the game, and it encourages me actually. Well, it encouraged me to add people who I'd been playing with who were reasonable players to my friends list, just because why not? I'll get
Better
more
chance.
gifts,
Better
and it'll be a bit
chance.
more fun.
Yep.
Um, I'm just trying to think of some of the things we were missed out actually, because one thing we didn't touch on is the mystic, the new crafter or artisan that you get. So in the base game, you had the blacksmith who created weapons and armor. You had the
Mm.
jewel crafter who manufactured more powerful gems to slot in your armor. The mystic is possibly the best of the artisans. She's
Yeah.
awesome. She offers two services. The first one and the most important
Sounds a bit
is
dodgy that.
she offers many services other than the ones we're going to talk about, I bet, because she has got that big billowing tent in the back. Um, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, she offers the most important service, and that's transmogrification, where you get to finally dictate what your armor looks like.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
It's like WoW and DC Online do
yeah,
quite well actually. Any armor that you've kind of accumulated, you can then change it out for armor that you've had in the past. And
yeah.
just if you want to kind of have the impression that that grey sword you're wielding is actually like an epic fucking axe or something, be my guest. Go ahead and do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that.
Yeah, like a lot of the like in typical RPG fashion, the high level armors are always really ornate, and some of them are just ridiculous, like with like lava pouring off them and all sorts of crazy shit. And with my Crusader, I really fucking like one of the mid tier armor sets. It's like kind of like the poster one where it's like black armor with like a white tabard thing on. It just looks really cool, I think. And I've got like a really fucking high level 70 with loads of legendary sets and loads of high level gear, and he's still rocking this kind of everyday armor just because I think it looks really cool.
I was
And I just like that.
I was gonna say, I mean, on my monk, this is pre kind of that. I used to get the invisible die and just get rid of all the armor because it looked like he's actually kind of on the box cover, just kind of in his kind of bare garment, and he just looked really badass. And
Well, yeah, and with my barbarian, what I used to do is I used to make his helmet and his shoulders and his helmet and shoulders disappear with the invisible ink, and then I would transmogrify his chest armor into the war paint, and he
yeah,
just looked like this bare-chested barbarian going around. It looked awesome. So it just adds like a little bit more of an aesthetical, like pleasing feature. Really, it makes you look. It doesn't mean you have to look like a clown or you have to carry around gear that's really good stat wise, but looks shit or doesn't look to your tastes.
yeah.
I really like that. I think it's a nice little touch, and it just makes it class. I just really like that. But joking aside, that's not the most important service she offers. It's my favorite service, but it's not the most important service. The most important service she offers is the enchanting, which it's not really like something out of World of Warcraft or anything like that. It's kind of it's a system that's been put in place to make. I mean, all the loot in Diablo is very very random. So you might get a bit of gear that's really really good,
Hmm.
but it has one stat on it that you aren't going to use, and it's a bit of a wasted stat. So what the enchanting lets you do in this game is it lets you basically pick one of the stats on a bit of gear, click enchant, and it will select from a list of possible options and possible values for those options, and then give you a selection of three randomized one and says, look, do you want to keep the original or do you want one of these three? You paid your money, you've got to pick one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a bit of a money sink because you might have to re-enchant the same stat over and over and over again before you get something that's usable or something that's decent. And you can only re-roll a single stat on every bit of gear, so you can't just like remold your whole gear to suit you. It's
No.
basically to make mediocre drops or less than optimal drops a bit more,
Slightly better.
yeah, a bit more easy to swallow
There's,
after a bad roll.
there's nothing worse than getting a really cool armor or head weapon and it's got like +10 arcane resistance. And you think, oh,
Ah, fucking hell! I want all resistance.
yeah.
But I mean, coming back onto the stats and the loot's been really changed in Reaper of Souls, and it's come across here. You've now got smart drops, which mean that if you're playing a wizard, you won't get like 99% of your gear that drops will be based on stats that a wizard will use. You'll not get strength gear or any bullshit like that. And similar, if you're playing a crusader or barbarian, you're going to get mainly strength gear. Whereas before it was completely random, you might never see an upgrade to your gear. Here, you're pretty much guaranteed a steady stream of upgrades. Excuse me. But the biggest change is legendary items. Where before legendary items were essentially just slightly more powerful weapons, they now fit in the category of that they all come with unique abilities and unique stats on them.
Mm.
And Blizzard have kind of been really cool and clever in this regard because certain items will make different character builds, like the way you play your character, viable. Whereas before they were subpar. This bit of gear might transform that and make them much, much better. For example, come back to my Crusader. One of my favorite abilities is called Blessed Shield, and it's basically you throw your shield like Captain America, and it bounces off enemies. And it's not that like against the other abilities in its category, it's not that good, but it's really fun. But it's not the best. But I've got a legendary shield drop for me that basically increases the amount of ricochets on my shield bounce. So whereas before it would ricochet 3 times, it now ricochets something like 9 times. And to increase that, I've got a rune to affix to my shield throw. That when I throw a shield, it hits the first enemy. It splits into 3.
And then when it hits them, it splits
So
again.
so now basically I've got 3 shields all ricocheting 9 times, and it just shreds through packs. It's and it's just such a fucking ridiculous thing to watch because the ability has no cooldown, so you can just, as long as you've got resource to spend it on it,
It just keeps
you just throw and throw and throw and throw, and there's just thousands of shields ricocheting everywhere. It's amazing. And it turned what was a kind of okay build into a fucking amazing build. Just that one bit of gear.
Yeah, there's armor I've seen on another barbarian. The Call of the Ancients, which summons kind of barbarians to help you battle. They kind of last forever until they die.
Really, that's amazing.
Yeah,
They are fucking awesome.
they are fucking nuts. I mean, the way you summon them is just mental. You just kind of yell at the sky and they just kind of come out of nowhere. And just to have that kind of,
It's
they do a lot of
it's
damage.
like the bit of Anchorman
Yeah, it is.
where he calls the news team down.
Assemble.
Yeah, so the legendary gear is now legendary. It's fucking amazing, and the fact that with the new drop system, it drops on very, very frequently. It's oh god, Diablo is this fucking infinite loop of positive feedback. It's fucking ridiculous.
Even when it's bad, it's good. It's pizza. Even when pizza's bad, it's still good. It's still pizza. It's still...
Yeah, that's the best way you can describe this game. It's fucking amazing, man. I love this game, and you know it does have a few shortcomings. I'm struggling to think what they are at this point in time.
It
And
ends. That's probably
it ends well. It doesn't with adventure mode. um, the only downside I can think to the console version or Diablo in general, really these days, is that on the console versions, we're not going to be patched as much or as up to the standard of PC versions. We're not getting quite as much support. That's not really too big a deal because what's here is already really fucking good.
Yeah.
Um, and the fact that we're not always online, which was a bad thing in the early days of Diablo 3, it's actually not so bad now that things have steadied out a little bit. But we're now open to people duping gear, so to making basically impossibly strong gear through nefarious means.
Yeah.
Um,
Not
and I don't know why anyone would do this in a game like Diablo because it takes the fun. Like the fun
That
is
is
in the
half the
fighting
fun. Yeah, fighting
and getting
there and
gear.
grinding and then getting slightly better items and trying something even harder and then carrying on and doing it.
And the thing is, as a negative, the worst thing it does is it makes you'll jump into a game like a random game online and you'll see someone just tearing through enemies at an impossible speed, and you know, all right, they've got duped items. But then you just leave and join another game or start your own. It's not like it's competitive, so they're not trouncing you and spoiling your fun. At most, they make it a bit inconvenient to start again. And because of the drop in, drop out nature of adventure mode, it's not really, you don't lose any progress really.
It's crazy.
So that's like they're the worst things I can really say about this game. I mean, I don't know what the PS3 and Xbox 360 versions of this game are like. I would imagine they're very, very similar to the console release we got last year, just with all the Reaper of Souls things thrown in. But the PS4 and Xbox One versions are excellent. They all run at a very, very smooth 60 frames per second. They both run at 1080p. There was some rumors that the Xbox One version wouldn't at first, but it got. I think Microsoft literally sent people to Blizzard to get it working on 1080. Or there was a post-release patch or something. I remember there was something, but I'm pretty sure it's on par with the PS4 version now. Yeah, this is a fucking game. This is the game that keeps on giving, man. And I certainly keep giving Blizzard my money.
Yeah. Any excuse. I've stopped paying for World of Warcraft, but they've got me here.
That's it. They're like, just they're like fucking drug dealers. If it's not one thing, I'm hooked on another thing they offer.
Yeah.
It's goddamn, man. I love Diablo 3. I love Reaper of Souls specifically. It's amazing. It's transformed the game. And I mean, you said before this is probably going to be the last time we have to review it or have to buy it. I kind of hope it's not because I'd love another expansion pack.
I don't know what to do. If it's just maybe like you say, a brand new expansion.
I would not be upset if they treat this like World of Warcraft, where they've got the base engine and they're just going to keep adding to it. I don't think that would be a bad thing at all.
I think only time will tell. Although it's been a while since they released the last expansion, I think.
For what?
Well, for Diablo 3, the Reaper of Souls. It's been a while since Reaper of Souls came out.
It only came out in March.
Did it? It seems so.
Yeah, it's been a long year, man.
I'll just shut up. I don't know what I'm talking
about. I don't think we'll see one for a long time, and I think we're going to see a lot of changes in between. But I'd quite like another expansion pack. Let's face it, we've said story's not their fucking strongest point, so let's just shit out a story for it, and then like polish up the gameplay mechanics a bit more.
They should open up a contest to someone to write the story. They don't have to worry about it.
Can't be any worse, kind of really is.
Exactly.
Yeah, like that's another negative. The story could have been a lot better because Blizzard are fucking amazing at creating worlds, but they're not that good at writing plot within those worlds.
No, they're not.
They've got a few really good storylines in their franchises, but
yeah, there's a few nuggets of gold. Generally, though, it's
mediocre, forgettable shit. Yeah, it's like bad Tolkien. A lot of it.
It's either mediocre or it just fucking jumps the shark so hard.
Yeah, they have a real bad habit of going to the most ridiculous thing first.
The best example is fucking Space Pirates when they released Burning Crusade expansion pack. I stopped giving a shit about the lore after that. That just made no sense.
But fucking Warlords of Draenor, which is coming out next month. That's like.
You mean Back to the Future Part 2?
It is kind of like that, though, isn't it? It's like, oh god, of all the things you could do with the wealth of things like lore in World of Warcraft, and they just rehash all shit in the most contrived way possible. Anyway, it's not fucking go at it's not go at World of Warcraft or anything like that. But yeah, like the story isn't great in Diablo, but it's okay. It's not bad. And I tell you what, despite the story being kind of so-so, the fucking cutscenes in between chapters are amazing. The typical Blizzard CGI cutscenes in that they look gorgeous and they've got real atmosphere to them.
Crazy.
Because I mean, there's a few like the whole cutscene where you see Tyrael getting stripped of his, well, he strips himself of his like immortality in heaven. I think that's a really cool cutscene. And then there's the one where you kind of see the armies of hell marching out the crater on the mountainside. And even the introduction to Reaper of Souls where Malthael turns up. I think there's some really, really badass cutscenes.
Yeah, there are. I mean, I like the final cutscene where it's kind of it's like talking to you. You're like the big bad and the big good, and it's we're just lucky that you're good. But if you ever turn bad, then we're all pretty much screwed.
Yeah, it kind of like Reaper of Souls does finish up in a way that it kind of leaves it open for a sequel, if not an expansion pack. It'll be interesting to see where they go from this, but hey, who knows? So we've been here a long fucking time.
Yep, it's been a while, as always.
I'm starting to get a bit hoarse. But yeah, you know, I've got a lot to say about Diablo. I really, really, really do like this game. Having said that, let's get on to our ratings. What's your rating going to be?
I'll give this 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I think that's a respectable score. Kind of just thinking about it, I might just bump this up. I think I'm coming up to 5 myself. The more I think about it, just talking about it's got me excited.
I think you've given a lot more love to it. I think that makes a lot more sense coming from you.
It's not a huge gulf between our ratings.
yeah. I mean, there's stuff that let it down that we talked about, like the story and things like that. But it doesn't detract from it at all. That's why I'm only kind of giving it half a star less than the full 5.
Yeah. You know, you're perfectly right. But just the sheer pounds to hours value I've got out of this game is unreal. And I've only leveled up like 2 of the 6 classes, and I'm going to go for the full 6.
It's definitely like World of Warcraft without subscription in terms of just replayability and the amount of time you're going to get out of it.
Kind of is, man. This has kind of really made me think that Blizzard are the masters of kind of just churning out games that are just about pure mechanics and just making them fun.
Enjoyable, balanced mechanics, yeah.
And they're the masters of it now, and I love this game. And I try to go back to World of Warcraft since I started playing Diablo, and I just can't do it, man. It's too slow paced. It's a very different kind of game, I know, but I just need more loot. I need more monsters to die. I just don't get that in World of Warcraft anymore. Diablo's fucking just got me hooked, man. I love this game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think generally quite high praise from both of us, really.
Absolutely. The highest of high.
Highest of high, yeah. So Blizzard, you've done it again, you fucking drug peddling bastards. So yeah, that's been our short Reaper of Souls. No, sorry, our short Diablo 3 Ultimate Evil Edition review.
Consider you've done about 3 already.
I know, Christ Almighty. You know, part of the reason I don't want another expansion pack.
The Nephilim will stop you.